Welcome to Totem Pole Sports Wednesday night edition. We have me, Lambo. Coach Taylor is in Colorado State with Bill Bash, Jay Norvell, and all the other goats. And then we have the man from Seoul. The man from Seoul is here in Totem Pole Nation. How was your weekend? I know we got a lot of stuff to talk about. College basketball, the Masters, the NFL draft is less than 2 weeks away. How do you feel, Paul? How do you feel?
Well, I will start tonight by talking about. Um, I must say that the South Carolina Gamecocks women's basketball team and the UConn men's basketball team. The difference between them and the field is I think that both of those teams have it figured out. They figured out the current college basketball landscape, and as much as we wanted to go against them every time out, um, and try to poke holes in their game. They are the steady influence in the world of college basketball. I loved how uh, you know we've kind of did a 360 in basketball on both the men's and women's side. We still shoot 3 pointers, but the post game, um, but the 3 pointers are built and based off the post game. So we have real fives, i.e., centers now in college, both the men's and women's game, and hopefully that translates to men's game at the NBA and WNBA level as well, because it was refreshing seeing good post play. Zach Edey, tremendous performance uh, for the Boilermakers, and for those who don't think he's a pro, meaning an NBA basketball player, somewhere somehow he can give someone 13 and 15 minutes of solid rim protection, and even some offense rebounding, points in the paint. I, Again, it's refreshing to see the big man and big woman back in the game.
Mm. Well, I have to agree with you, Paul. I think it was great games. I know the teams, the Iowa and South Carolina was very close until the second half. Iowa did turn the ball over, multiple times very early in the game. Caitlin Clark still got her points, but the South Carolina defense basically limited her a little bit. She got her points, she got her buckets, but it was all about having like that certain primary defender that LSU should have had against Iowa, but that wasn't really the case. Um, but when it came to that South Carolina game, post play and that 9-man rotation, South Carolina, right, won the championship with a whole new roster. Literally, not literally, they play a 9-man rotation, but when we talk about some players that weren't on the team last year, and then they won the championship, and then just imagine the upcoming season they're gonna have the whole roster back. That's that's very, very that's dangerous, right? I think when it comes to Dawn Staley, I think she's got to be considered in the top five, right? Dawn Staley is one of very few coaches to have 3 championships, especially on the women's side. It's not a lot of coaches that have 3 championships, right? She has three, I think, in 7 years. The last 3 seasons, they only lost 3 games, and she averages 35 plus wins. And we're talking, and she's doing it in the SEC. She's not doing it in the weaker conference. She's doing it in the SEC, the Southern Conference. The Southern Conference, which, when it comes to women's basketball, I think that she set the standard for women's basketball. Now, other coaches in the past have set the standard, but if you're telling me who's my GOAT now, and I know I've said Gino, who's the guy 11 titles, but you said it in the last show. Dawn Staley's getting Gino's recruits now. So it's all about that recruitment game. Now Dawn Staley's up there, kind of taking over a little bit from recruiting side from Gino. Not saying that Gino is not a good coach, but Dawn Staley's getting the Connecticut players now. Like that's basically what you said. So it's a recruitment battle. South Carolina keeps on winning. But see, the thing about South Carolina is everybody buys in. No egos. You can win with a 9-man rotation. Normally in a tournament, certain teams only go 6, 7-man rotation. South Carolina goes 9, especially Cardoso, who got drafted in WNBA. She was putting in points. Then you have the other guard comes on the bench. I think it's number 2. She contributes to the rebound. She can easily get a double double. So when it comes to South Carolina, you have multiple players that can change the game. Now Iowa, I'm gonna give props to Iowa. They made it to the national. They made it back to the national championship game last year and this year. They failed, but at the end of the day, it just came down to turnovers. And I kept saying it. I'm not a hater of Iowa, but South Carolina has been there before. Iowa hasn't. It comes down to that experience, and it was a tie game. Iowa was up at 12 at one point, but South Carolina, they kept fighting. They kept fighting. They made that adjustment. They went big. That's what LSU should have went. They had size, but they didn't use it. South Carolina's size affected Iowa. And like you said about post game, having that old school post game, shooting threes, ball movement. This is what I focused on. This is the most focused I ever watched in women's basketball because I love college women's basketball based on fundamentals, excitement. I mean, the viewership on TV for that game, boom, skyrocketed. More views than the national championship game and UConn and Purdue. And I want to get to that. Now, UConn is the face of college basketball. Now, I'm not talking about 30 plus years of, oh, now they are. I'm talking about as of now, within a 3-year time period, right? UConn back-to-back national championships has not been done since the Florida Gators in 2006, 2007. Joe Kim Noah, all these other Hall of Famers that are in the NBA. UConn is the standard, right? Dan Hurley, do not take the job in Kentucky. Do not take the job in Kentucky. Stay at UConn or you will get a divorce. UConn is the standard. UConn is not up there in the recruiting rankings as far as they're not at Kansas, they're not at Kentucky, they're not at Duke. They're not going to be top 5 in recruitment. But the transfer portal, like you said, is very important. Both talk about that transfer portal. Very important. Getting guys that everybody can contribute to. You don't have to be the main guy. And that's why they won back-to-back national championships because they have certain players that can impact in each game, and you don't have to be the main guy. I think there's a possibility they go on the three-peat. That's harder, easier said than done. But I don't see anybody that's going to stop UConn. I don't see it. I mean,
Well, I'll tell you what,
go ahead.
and it's a good point. I think it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier task for UConn because of the transfer portal, and now that they've got a couple of freshmen, um, feet wet into the tournament. They'll be sophomores next year, and then now they could be the front men for the Huskies. Now it's about just surrounding your two, highly ranked freshmen that'll be sophomores with some depth. And that's the thing about UConn. Like they can play they can play a bunch of different styles of ball. They have a great coach in Hurley because he's going to take the guys that he collects up and he's going to figure out, okay, who do I need to match with my sophomores once my roster is depleted of you guys going to the NBA, guys graduating, what have you. And again, like you said, he's not Kansas, he's not Kentucky, he's not Duke, but what he is if you come here, you're going to win. So I think he's at the pole position when it comes to talking to kids in the transfer portal to piece his team together. There's only 12 scholarships in men's basketball, but UConn has figured out how to utilize them, to a T. I mean, he brings in like 2 freshmen, and then the rest he builds it. from the portal, grad transfers, and it just guys that are hungry. And like you said, there's no egos. It's just everyone buys in, similar to Don Staley in South Carolina. Everyone's there to win, not to get theirs.
Hmm. I do agree, but it's sad that March Madness has come to an end, but it went by pretty fast. But congratulations to South Carolina and UConn for winning your championships. I won't be surprised if South Carolina wins it again. I won't be surprised if UConn goes for a three-peat, but it's going to be very hard because everybody's going to be coming right after UConn. The Masters, right? You're excited about the Masters. How do you feel about the Masters? Tiger Woods is coming back. I think the joke, I don't know if it was a joke or to be honest, but he did say something about not having sex. How do you feel about that, Paul?
I'm not interested. I'm interested in golf. I mean, listen, um, people again, they just trying to create buzz and storylines, what have you. But at the end of the day, it's can Tiger's legs hold up, his ankle, his back, can all of that stuff hold up, and him to find himself in a position on the weekend to be hanging around because again, he's still Tiger Woods. If he's in contention, meaning within 3 shots over the weekend, anything's possible. Because this guy, he, he the closer he is to that lead, the less he'll feel all those little nagging injuries in his body, and he'll be wanting to push forward. Is he the favorite? No, but um, we'll see. He's a wait and see because he could be gone by the weekend. But if it'd be nice to have him in contention. My favorite going in here, I just think that it's not a popular pick, but I just think it's Rory's time. I just think it's Rory's time, and if it's not Rory, I'll take my guy Kepka because I'm a big Kepka guy, and I, either one of those guys I'd like to see don a green jacket.
Hmm. And how long is the Masters? So it's tomorrow till Sunday, right?
Correct.
Hmm.
4 rounds, 18 holes a day, low score wins.
Oh yeah, I know. I know the
Today was
rules.
the par 3 contest, and Ricky Fowler won 5 under through 9 holes. He was your par 3 winner. And the significance in that is there has never been in the history of the Masters a person that won the par 3 contest on Wednesday to go on and win the tournament. So Ricky Fowler's odds of winning have gone way down the totem pole.
Hmm. Way down the totem pole. So you're going to be spending your retirement watching the Masters all day long. Is that what you're saying?
Me?
Yes, you.
Yeah, don't yeah. That's all I'll be doing. That's it.
So
I did
all
my
right.
yard work for the day. I cut the grass. Like I said, it's gonna rain here tomorrow. Tomorrow is all Masters. And
Mm.
hopefully the weekend is all Masters. I might have to make a trip down with my son to Charlotte uh, on a recruiting visit. Um, but other than that, it's Masters.
Masters. Heard that. Next thing, Drew Holiday agrees with a big extension with the Boston Celtics. They got their money. Jalen Brown's the highest paid. Jason Tatum got an extension. Here comes Drew Holiday with the extension. Uh, how are you feeling about this extension, Paul? How do you feel?
That that's an interesting one. I didn't see that coming, but I think at the end of the day, it's a good move for the Celtics because it puts them in position to chase this thing um, for a significant amount of time. And when you get a solid veteran like him locked up, that just means that, you can have some misses in the draft, but you can also have some hits in the draft and put some young guys around these vets to spell minutes. As you know, it's a long season, and to get these guys off the floor because at this juncture, Drew Holiday, you signed him up to play playoff basketball. You know, you want him around the playoffs. So again, a great move by the Celtics because it allows them to again hit in the draft. A couple got maybe one or two draft picks. Ideally, if they hit one every year, then that guy can be in the rotation. And like I said, help with minutes throughout the season when you're trying to keep the load down on your stars. Because, when you got Porzingis, I don't know how long he's locked up for, but, Brown and Tatum are locked up. And then you got your defensive anchor right there on the perimeter. Again, their window, the window for Boston stays open in a slightly watered down and weakened Eastern Conference.
I think this is great for the Celtics. Smart. It's a very smart decision. I know Drew Holiday is getting a little older. He's at 33 years old. But the void, he has filled the void for the Marcus Smart, who was, he was Boston. Marcus Smart was the heart and soul of the defense of the Boston Celtics. He filled that void. But as the Celtics came down to it, they needed a little bit of more offense. So he was a guy that can give you some offense and can give you some defense. So this is a great signing. He was on a player option, so this means next year would have been his last year of the contract. But he declined that player option and gave him an extension. But the Celtics, they need to have that core. The trade that happened last year was, Milwaukee to Portland that sent Damian Lillard to the Bucks, and then Drew Holiday came to the Celtics. So I think this is great. I'm not very, surprised. Excuse me. There's a reason why the Boston Celtics have the best record in the NFC. I mean, excuse me, best record in the Eastern Conference. Eastern Conference. The reason why they had the best record in the Eastern Conference, sitting at 62-17. There's 3 more games to go in the regular season, and then the playoffs start April 20th, which means we're right around the corner for big things to happen with the Celtics team. But I am very, very impressed. Just with the addition of Drew Holiday, he's already shooting 43%, which is his best. That's his best in his career. So for the Boston Celtics to be able to spread you out with the bigs, get some additions to Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday. I know, getting rid of Marcus Smart wasn't easy, but last time I checked, the Celtics became a way better team. And that number one seed's already locked because they're ahead in the Eastern Conference by at least 12 games. It's not even close. So I'm not going to underestimate any teams because the NBA, anything can happen. It's a 7 game series. It is not college basketball was one and done. Is a 7 game series. So I'm not going to estimate. I'm not going to underestimate any opponents. But hey, it's a great signing when it comes to Drew Holiday. Next thing that I wanted to get into um, is the NFL. The Jets, Aaron Rodgers. The man from Seoul here said the Jets are going to make the AFC Championship game when he forgot you got the Chiefs in the AFC. You forgot the Bengals and Joe Burrow. Definitely forgot the Bengals and Joe Burrow. You forgot the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, who already been to the AFC Championship game. The reason why I'm saying that because in the AFC, there's going to be at least 2, 3 teams in the AFC North that make the playoffs. The AFC North is the toughest division of football. So, in order for the Jets to even get to the playoffs or make the AFC Championship, they're going to have to win the AFC East. And the last time I checked, uh, they still got Josh Allen despite the departure of Stephon Diggs. So Aaron Rodgers thought his career would be over after tearing his Achilles. Um, how do you feel about Aaron Rodgers and the Jets? Because he is one more injury away from completely being done, and
Okay,
is Bob
let's
is
not talk
Bob
about injuries. Let's talk about current day. Let's talk about current rosters. The Buffalo Bills have lost their number one. They're going to be out there with patchwork receivers this year. What does that mean to me? New York Jets defense is still the top five defense in the National Football League. Okay, that's number one. That eliminates the Patriots. They'll sweep them 2 games.
that
The Miami
what?
Dolphins, the Miami Dolphins, again, in this league, it's called follow the quarterback. All right. You want to mention Lamar, you want to mention Burrow, in addition to the teams you just mentioned. Number one, they're going to win the AFC East going away.
No, they're
Number
not.
two, when you're talking Burrow, when you're talking Lamar Jackson, everyone keeps forgetting the New York Jets have a defense and they have a quarterback who's been there before. It's not like he has to carry this whole thing. He's going to get chances because he has a defense. And in a playoff game, again, if they finish, if they finish, yeah. All you gotta do is finish number two or number three, and they'll be in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs. Book it. That's just how it's going to go down, man. Aaron Rodgers is going to be on a revenge tour, and he has a defense. He doesn't have to do it all by himself. They signed Mike Williams. They've got the kid out of Ohio State on the other side. The talk is they're going to get Bauer in the draft and play him as a rookie. Look, that defense is top five with Aaron Rodgers, and he has two big offensive tackles. They went and got them too. Listen, if I'm wrong, then I
You
don't
will.
know my own soap opera. I've seen this movie before.
You're
It
going to be
doesn't
wrong.
mean that the Jets are winning the Super Bowl, but the Jets are going to beat everybody in the AFC, and they're going to go toe to toe with Kansas City, and then we'll let the chips fall where they may. Do I see the Chiefs three-peating? Yes. But the Jets will be at Arrowhead for the AFC Championship game.
Well, you're going to be wrong, and then you're going to owe me $100 because
Okay.
it's okay. One, I know the Jets have a defense. I already know the Jets have a defense. Jets having a defense is not the issue. Is the Jets defense better than the Ravens defense? No. No, not better than the Ravens defense. Is the Jets defense better than the Bengals defense? Yes. Is the Jets defense better than the Cleveland Browns defense? I think they're about the same. Myles Garrett. I mean, they've been the Cleveland Browns were a top three, top four defense this year, had four quarterbacks, and still,
Is the Baltimore offense better than the Jets offense?
yes, 100%. 100%.
How? Why? How? Why?
Are you are you kidding me right now? Are you
Lamar
kidding me right now?
Jackson. Lamar Jackson is a regular season quarterback. He
And
had
what
his
is and,
chance
and
and
what
he
is
couldn't
what,
get it done. He had his chance at home and he was throwing ducks around that yard. He's
and
not
what
that guy.
and what did Aaron Rodgers do his last year
He
in
hadn't
Green Bay?
played yet. Give him a chance.
Give him a chance. How many chances you want to give the man? Okay,
He
okay.
played four plays. Don't rule the guy out. Don't rule the guy out because he didn't play last year. Okay.
I'm not ruling. I'm not ruling
And
out
don't
his.
and don't start going. Don't start comparing the Browns and the Jets defense, and then you kind of like slide the Jets away. Okay, when the Jets
I'm
defense knows they have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, they're gonna it's gonna be a whole different team.
okay.
They're gonna be playing with leads, and you're gonna be turning guys loose on that defense because there's no more run game for the other team. And if Tua gets behind 13-0 to the Jets, see you later.
So wait. Last time I checked, the Jets had a great defense last year. Raheem Mostert ran all over them. Last time I checked, they still got Raheem Mostert. What are you talking about? They got Devon Archer and Raheem Mostert. Devon Archer, one of the fastest running backs in the NFL. So
Okay,
you're
with
telling
the
me
score is 13-0. Those guys are irrelevant in the National Football League when the score is 13-0.
you forgot Mike McDaniel is calling the plays, not Nathaniel
Okay,
Hackett.
I forgot he was calling the plays last year, but dude, that's regular season mojo. How are they going to stop Rodgers? You don't want to talk about that.
Rodgers is not gonna make it that far. Rodgers is getting old. Aaron Rodgers is getting old. That Achilles injury
So
is
was
gonna
Tom
bother him.
Brady, and he went to Tampa and won a Super Bowl. Come on.
Aaron Rodgers is not
These
Tom
guys can
Brady.
play the game with their head. They physically they could do it. Dude, they're smarter than the other. He's seen every defense. He's in the same slot that Brady was in. If he doesn't get sacked, if he doesn't get chased, and you allow him to sit back there, he will pick any defense apart in the league.
Well, that offensive line.
You're discrediting a guy who's a first ballot Hall of Famer. You're just
I'm
trying
not.
to push him away.
No. I'm not pushing away. I'm giving you the reality that the Jets are not going to the AFC Championship game. I'm trying to give you reality. You want to believe in fantasy.
Okay,
I don't
you
believe in
gotta
fantasy.
tell me and show me why not.
I just told you why it's not going to happen. What about the
Why?
Houston Texans? The Houston Texans are going to make it farther than the Jets. The Houston Texans made the playoffs. What are you talking about? C.J. Stroud? Yeah, I'm going to take
So the Jets did, again. Newsflash: the Jets did not make the playoffs because they didn't have Aaron Rodgers.
What about all these other years? What was that same energy all these other years then? What was that same energy? What was that same energy?
They didn't have Aaron Rodgers.
Oh my! See there you go. It's always whose fault is that? The Jets organization. That is their fault for not getting a good enough quarterback. That's their fault.
No, if he didn't get hurt, we'd see a whole different team last year.
The Jets
Just wait and see. You're gonna get mad when he starts winning games and he's healthy and he's just throwing BDs all around the field. You're gonna get mad. But he's going to make the AFC pay. He's going to make the AFC pay for him not playing. Like, you don't think he's motivated?
I didn't say he was motivated. I'm trying.
Okay, then again, I mean, the only person that he's going to have to look down the gun barrel at is Pat Mahomes in the AFC. The rest of those guys, nope.
So you go disrespect Joe Burrow?
I'm not going to disrespect you, but they don't have enough. They don't have enough. The Jets have a defense to shut them down.
Okay.
And Aaron Rodgers is going to be on a tour. And if their defense ain't good enough, they'll be down 13-0, and their run game will be non-existent as well. And if you go one-dimensional against the Jets defense, it's Sauce Gardner, pick six, see you later. You can't throw the ball every down against the Jets. That's what they're going to try to get people into. 13-0. Remember that. 13-0. You get down on the Jets, you're going to have to face a ferocious defense, especially when they know you're not going to run the football because you are behind.
All right. Next topic, MLB, some baseball. It's 13 games in. The Marlins improved to 2-11. And they got a 5-2 win over the Yankees. Do you think the Marlins are going to be the worst team in the American League? Do you think they're going to be one of the worst teams? Starting the
Absolutely.
season 2-11.
Absolutely. It's going to be a long season in Miami.
And that's all you got.
That's all I got. It's going to be there's nothing to talk. There's nothing to see here, folks.
What about the
It's
Yankees?
just going to be a long season. They'll be in the basement. I mean, the Oakland A's / Las Vegas A's will have more wins than them. That's all thing. I mean, what is there else is there to talk about? I can't even name a starting player on the Miami Marlins. I can just, or the Florida Marlins. I could just look at that record and go, season's over.
How do you feel about the Yankees and Aaron Judge?
Mm. Uh, uh, Soto got off to a hot start. Their whole season is riding on whether Garrett Cole can come back healthy and move into the number one slot in the pitching staff. If he can't, they're gonna have some issues. Baltimore is young and they're hot, and they've got a lot of depth and a lot of young depth. They're gonna be tough in the East division.
Hmm. Baseball is just getting started. It's only been
Yeah,
13.
we got to get, like I said, 40 games in, and we'll know who's who in the zoo.
Hmm. All right, so spring football is on the way. Auburn new head coach Hugh Freeze uh, was at Liberty before he took the job at Auburn, and there's a quarterback competition. Peyton Thorne was the transfer from Michigan State. How do you feel about Auburn in this upcoming college football with the retirement of Nick Saban? Do you think Auburn will be relevant?
There's no question they'll be better. I mean, Hugh Freeze has got a track record for being able to recruit. As I mean, he started at Ole Miss. I mean, he brought them to prominence. Um, he made them better. He left them better than he found them, and then he went to Liberty and did the same thing. That 16-0 team last year, led by Jimmy Treadwell, that was all Hugh Freeze's players. And then he went to Auburn and he started his rebuild, and you know he'll be there again. He'll be amongst the top um, teams in the SEC West because he knows how to build a team, and he knows the SEC, and he he needs about 3 seasons, and then he's an excellent recruiter. So the guys that he brought in, again, it's a little different now. When you bring in freshmen, you hope by year 3, when they're juniors, that you can start making the move. But the move may be accelerated because of the transfer portal, because he is a heck of a recruiter. And if people don't realize that he recruited at Liberty, and Liberty went 12-0 and went to a a New Year's bowl game a year after he left. I mean, Liberty University. That's doing a lot of stuff.
Um, Auburn, we'll see how good they are. I don't think there's an issue with Hugh Freeze turning the team around. But it's surprising that Peyton Thorne would still keep his job. Um, after you know last season, he doesn't have that much of a big lead over Hank Brown and Holden uh, Garner, but he did somewhat struggle. 16 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, passed for 1,755 yards. After he transferred from Michigan State. Um, when it comes to Auburn, their defense, right? The SEC is going to be all about defense. It's who has the best defense. Auburn's defense needs to improve. The offense will be fine, but let me be very very clear when I say this. They got to be able to improve the offense, but defense comes first. But the reason why I say to improve the offense is because they were ranked 121st out of 130 FBS teams in passing. They only averaged 162 games in the passing game. And that's kind of not good in the SEC. If you're trying to beat Alabama, you're trying to beat LSU, you're trying to beat a Georgia, Ole Miss is up there, and you're telling me you ranked almost ninth to last in passing. No, that can't happen. They had to upgrade from the receiver talent. They had Javarius Johnson who left the program, but they got Cam Coleman. They got new groups of targets, four freshmen, a couple of transfers, very, very important. He was a five-star recruit and ranked number three as a prospect, and he's gonna. We'll see if Cam Coleman can make any type of impact. But it's all about the receiver play, right? They also got Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons. So it's the wide receiver play. It's rebuilding that offense and getting the wide receiver play to having all those targets because, like I said, you can talk about it, but at the end of the day, you got to execute. And when it comes down to Auburn, we'll see how good they do. Do I think Auburn has a chance against Alabama because Nick Saban's gone? No. I don't think Alabama is going to just fall off because Nick Saban ain't there. I mean, they got Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeBoer has won everywhere he's went. I mean, he won like 100+ games in Division III football before he came to Division I. So we'll see how Auburn does. I'm not sold on Peyton Thorne as the quarterback, but if that's the only thing they have, it is what it is. But I'm not sold. I'm not going to put my soul on my heart into this quarterback. So Auburn went 6-7 last year. Okay. Second year, Hugh Freeze, Auburn's gonna go maybe. Respectfully, I'll give them 8-5. Auburn's going 8-5 or 7-6. That's what I'm going to give Auburn because I'm not sold on Auburn. So
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, again, it's only year two of Hugh Freeze. That's fair.
all right. So another thing, college football, Clemson, Dabo Sweeney, right? Very disappointing season for Clemson fans. Um, or if they're being spoiled. I think it's disappointment as far as expectations. The expectations were disappointing. Clemson at one point was 4-4 last year, and then they finished the season winning 5 straight games, winning that bowl game against Kentucky. Uh, how do you feel about Clemson? Now I know Clemson has not been the same with the loss of Brent Venables, great defensive mind. He's the head coach of Oklahoma. They don't have Tony Elliott, the former offensive coordinator, who is the head coach at UVA. So the offense has really been the same, especially with the loss of Trevor Lawrence. They hadn't really been the same. DJ Uwaluge transferred to Oregon State and now to Florida State. So how do you feel about Clemson? I tried to tell all the spoiled brats at Clemson that DJ Uwaluge was never the problem at Clemson. I mean, they won games, you know, but just with the new offensive coordinators, it didn't help. Are you sold on Cade Klubnik in his second season, third season? Are you sold on Cade Klubnik in Clemson? How do you feel
Well,
about?
how do I feel about Clemson? This is where how I feel about Clemson, and I don't think, first of all, but first and foremost, they got they didn't strike while the iron was hot. And I'll start with they should have been out of there when all this movement of teams or universities to different conferences. They were the flagship organization for the ACC. They had a chance to jump to the SEC, but at the time, and again, I can see a two prong here. One, they were like, well, if we stay in ACC, then all we need to do is win the ACC. Then we're in the tournament. Okay, got it. But what happened as we seen all this movement, um, now they're trying to sue the ACC to get out of the contract so they can move. It's too late now. They should have did it before. Secondly, Dabo Sweeney, along with Tom Izzo at Michigan State, refused to use the transfer portal when it came to light in the NCAA. He said, "Hey, I'm gonna bring in freshmen. I'm going to build my team, and that's the way I'm going to do it. Well, what happened was, if you look back the last 3 years at Clemson, the talent base at Clemson has decreased significantly. And I agree with you. DJ was not the problem. It was the lack of playmakers that they had at Clemson around him. Trevor Lawrence had NFL receivers all up and down that roster. You look at that roster now. You go back and look at that Duke game, the first game of the season, Clemson
Yep.
at Duke when they got beat.
Yep.
You look. I mean, they used to run guys out there like Hopkins and Mike Williams. There's no one that looks like that on the outside at Clemson anymore.
I've been saying that, but
nobody.
I've been saying that, Paul, but see,
nobody.
Fans,
you look at the corners, the safeties, the backers from 4 years ago, then look at their safeties and corners and backers now. It doesn't even look like Clemson.
Nope.
Because, again, you have to stay in the times. With the transfer portal brought upon transfers, meaning people were leaving your organization and you're like, we're going to build from within. Can't do that. You got to play the game like everybody else.
And Dabo doesn't believe in NIL. He says we're going to use faith in God. And I understand not against religion, but I mean, that's what he said.
But these kids are looking after every season. These kids now want to be evaluated and see, hey, so what am I worth after the season I just had? Am I worth it to you to give me money, or do I need to move on? That's the game that we're playing here.
Yep. I agree. I think Dabo has not used transfer portal enough. He doesn't believe in NIL. So I don't know how the players are going to get paid. By the way, the whole NIL thing is not really the university. It's through a third party, and then there's other stuff that's added on to that. But I don't understand how you don't believe in NIL, where you have Alabama and Georgia on top of the NIL stuff, and Georgia is the top dog in college football now. Even though they didn't win the national championship, and we know Michigan did, Georgia's look what Georgia has had with Kirby Smart. I mean, but Clemson, Clemson is damn near decreased after Trevor Lawrence. I kept trying to tell people that. Oh, it's DJ. DJ's the problem. You don't have any damn receivers. I mean, your only good player you have on offense is Will Shipley, and you don't use the man enough. You have Will Shipley and Phil Maffa. You don't use them enough. You didn't use
Will Shipley. Even if they rode Will Shipley, that's not good enough to win. That's not good enough to win big time football. Look, man, all we got to do is go back and look at let's look at a national championship roster, Deshaun Watson's team, and then look at Clemson's roster. You go player for player, position for position. It is an embarrassment of lack of talent at Clemson.
Yes.
And again, if you look at that team without even looking at any stats or anything, I know that there were significantly more 5-star players on that team than they bring in now. Yeah. It's obvious. I mean, and now the ACC is becoming the next conference on the chopping block, because where is that team in the ACC? Where's the team that you want to see in the 12-team playoff that can make some noise in the ACC? Who are they?
Well, one would be Florida State. I mean, Florida State did go undefeated. I mean, I'd take Florida State over any other team in the ACC. Florida State, Mike Norvell.
I'll take Florida State before Clemson.
Yes. Mike Norvell turned that program around very, very quickly. They were starstruck after Jimbo Fisher left to go to A&M. They hadn't been insane. They had Willie Taggart. They had DeAndre Francois quarterback. They struggled a couple years. Mike Norvell comes from Memphis. Yeah, I'll tell you this: if Jordan Travis didn't get hurt, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Florida State and Michigan in the championship game. Like I wouldn't be surprised. Florida State and Michigan in the championship game, and that game could have went either way, just because of the talent that Florida State has had. Anybody else, I don't know. I don't know what ACC I could take. UNC, they don't have Drake May, but UNC always starts off good, then they fall off. Uh,
But they have talent. I mean, you look at look at the guys out on the edge, like receivers and corners. They look the part at UNC. They have talent. They have long, lengthy talent. And again, it's one of those schools that I'm just looking at going, where does Mac Brown find his guys? Because, I mean, as far as like recruiting in state, it's not like, I mean, North Carolina is not Georgia football. It's not even South Carolina football or Florida. So he has basically he has to wave a bigger wand when it comes to recruiting because he has to recruit in larger areas to amass the talent he does. But he's got some really good looking players, at North Carolina. They had some hiccups last year. I mean, that UVA game was just like, what was that? But I mean, they have talent. Their roster doesn't look like Clemson. It doesn't.
yeah, and with the loss of Will Shipley, that's going to hurt. Will Shipley is going to the NFL draft. They got Phil Moffitt back, but I just don't know. We'll have to see how Clemson really actually is, but they're
Did
going to have to
Shipley
get
go
it.
into the draft?
Yes, Will Shipley is going to the
Wow.
draft.
Well, that hurts.
Yeah, he's going to the draft, so that's going to hurt. Kate Klubnik is still learning the system. They got a new offensive coordinator, Garrett Riley, who was the SMU offensive coordinator. He was the TCU offensive coordinator when he went to the national championship one year and got beat by Georgia by 60 plus points. But it's a tough it's a tough pill to swallow when it comes to those things. The last thing I want to talk about in tonight's show is college basketball. John Calipari leaves uh, leaves Kentucky to Arkansas. He has a connection. How do you feel about that? How do you feel?
I think it was time for him to go. I mean, 15 years at Kentucky is a long time. I think I think it was good. I mean, it was just time for them to mutually part ways. Calipari's not done coaching though, and he stays in the SEC, and he goes to a program. Okay, they're not a blue blood like Kentucky, but they have the rabid fan base that will get behind a Calipari hiring. And what they know that Calipari means we're going to get recruits. Calipari is the ultimate recruiter. He's still in a big conference. He's just next door at Arkansas, which is like, you know, Kentucky's little brother. And you can win at Arkansas. It's been done before, but now Coach Cal's there. But the bigger question is, who does Kentucky get?
Boy, that's hard. I don't have a lot of candidates on mine. I think the best candidate that I think of is Bruce Pearl from Auburn. Very aggressive, passionate coach, plays solid defense. That's probably my best coaching candidate for Kentucky is Bruce Pearl. You just got to pay that man. That's
Yeah, and
my
I'm hearing Scott Drew out of Baylor because
ah,
he turned around. I mean, he made a national championship out of Baylor, and they weren't even talking that when they brought him on. They just brought him on to resurrect the program. But he's another one out there. But it just in today's coaching world, you would love to get some young guy, to come into Kentucky, a young like hotshot coach, but I just don't feel or see that person out there. Secondly, they're going to call Billy Donovan, of course, and I mean, of course, he's probably going to say no because why would Billy Donovan want to come back to college basketball in the current state that it's in? He's got an NBA job, and I mean, and again, I think like as far as coaches, especially assistant coaches, to me today it is more. It's a better quality of life to be an NFL coach or a NBA coach than a college coach. You got too much stuff to do. There's too much things going on now. You got NIL, transfer portal. Those just two words right there. Just I mean, make your life. You're recruiting. You thought you were recruiting around the clock before. Now you're recruiting not only kids in the portal, you're recruiting your own players to stay at your school, and you're recruiting the next crop of high school seniors in both of those sports. That's a lot of recruiting, and that's a lot of work that guys in the NFL and the NBA don't have to do.
I do agree with that. I'm shocked that this move was made. I'm not really shocked that he left. He did sign a lifetime contract, and then the contract was being negotiated that he was going to stay, and then he left. There's a lot of he didn't have the full support of Kentucky. I don't think he had full controlling over the recruiting. I know there's a couple years that he struggled. They hadn't been to the Final Four, I think, since 2015. That's the year they went 38-0 and lost to Wisconsin. That's when they had Devin Booker and the Harrison brothers and Willie Cauley-Stein. That was a very talented roster back then. Very, very talented roster.
Willie Cauley-Stein.
Willie Cauley-Stein, yeah. Very talented roster back then, but I think Kentucky fans were a little bit more desperate. He was feeling the heat just with the losses to Oakland, Kansas State. I don't know, what was it, FDU or some other team that I don't even never heard of. So the bad losses in the tournament, and from watching Kentucky, John Calipari is a defensive coach, and Kentucky played no damn defense this year, and zero defense. I mean, they scored 100+ points on in 6 games, but I'm like, you're a defensive coach. What the hell you ain't got no defense? You only won the title with Anthony Davis. Now, John Calipari is the second winningest coach in Kentucky. Second winningest in Kentucky. I just, who do you replace him with? He's the second winningest coach of all time. Second. Like, Kentucky wasn't even good after, the 80s, after they had those championships in the early 60s and 70s, where were they then? So it's hard. I don't know what the state of, in the state of Kentucky is really thinking, because now all the recruiting class they got, half of them from Kentucky are going to follow John Calipari to Arkansas. That's what they're going to do. They're all following Arkansas, and Arkansas is going to be, the main threat. I think John Calipari would do just fine in Arkansas. I mean, what Eric Musselman did before going to USC. Arkansas 1 year did make the Elite Eight. So Eric Musselman left that program Arkansas fine. Now you got John Calipari. He knows the billionaire there, so the connections is there. So he should get full control of the recruiting. But for Kentucky, depending on who you hire, I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe Kenny Payne's in the conversation. I know he got fired from Louisville with the record of like 12-52, but he was a very good assistant coach at Kentucky under John Calipari. So maybe you probably go with a familiar face that's been in the program before. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I don't know what to tell you, but this is it for Totem Pole Sports. We want to thank you, Totem Pole Sports. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This is Lambos, the man from Seoul. Get your merch. We are sponsored by St. Pete Rejuvenate, and y'all have a great day. Please take care. We will be back on the show tomorrow. Adios.